Mike, hey Mike, can I share that testimony of the lady, Miss Cooley? Yeah, we have a lady that we do some work for, and there was one lady who's really going through a difficult time. I think her husband left her, is that right? Her husband left her, she had no money. And Mrs. Cooley is the lady that we do work for, but in this building there's four houses, but it's all kind of connected together. It's in Coventry. And so Miss Cooley called Mike up and said, probably should have just had you share it, but said, I want to do something. I want to talk to you about God.
Yeah, well, what it is because she called me over to do some jobs over there for her neighbors. So she wanted me to do her entire building, but in order to do the whole building, all four neighbors have to want it and want to pay for it. And when she got to this particular neighbor, she said, hey, this gentleman's going to be here doing, because they all got excited about the homeowners association. We need to get this stuff cleaned up. So her neighbor said, well, I got a lot of problems. My husband walked out on me by surprise. I have a son that we have a problem with. I don't have any money. Everything's caving in on me. She said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't have any money. I'm black. What the homeowners association was asking me. So,
Can y'all hear Mike? Can y'all hear him?
yes, I got home, and then later on that afternoon, yesterday, Miss Cooley called. She said, and see, we were talking with one of the other neighbors who's a Presbyterian, and he said, I'm Presbyterian, but he said, Deanne here, who's Miss Cooley, is a Catholic. He said, well, she's not a very good Catholic. When I go to my church, I pray for her so she can be a better Catholic. They kind of joking around. So she calls me yesterday afternoon, and she says, I want to talk to you of something that has to do with God. She said, I want to ask you something. I said, well, that's fine. Go ahead. And she says, you remember the neighbor that's going through a hard time? I said, yeah. She said, well, I really want to do something. I said, well, tell me what you're thinking about. She says, well, I think maybe we can go in together and help her. I said, well, how much are you willing to help? She said, I'll put up, half of the money of what you're charging to get this job done. And I said, you want me to put the other half, in other words, just go ahead and do the job and you pay me for half of it. She said, exactly. I said, okay, let's do it. And so she said, I'm going to go talk to her. She said, I'll call you back for a while. So she called me back about a half hour, and she said, I talked to the neighbor. I said, oh, well, what did she say? Well, she's sitting in her house crying. She couldn't believe it. She said she doesn't know how she's ever going to be able to repay us. And why are we thinking about her and everything? She said, that really makes me happy. I'm glad we can do this together. I said, okay. So
it's those are the kind of things that God speaks through. It's giving of yourself. It's, Jesus, to me, just watching the life of Jesus, it says Jesus would see people and he would have compassion on them. And then he would do something. You see, compassion, it says he'd had compassion on the leper and he healed the leper. He says he had compassion on the multitudes because they were like sheep not having a shepherd, and he taught them many things. Speaking about the body here, as we love people like that, as we put on love and we make a sacrifice and do things like that, God speaks through that. You might not have all the chapters and verses memorized, but you have to just pray, say, God, give me compassion for people. I remember this one student I had, and he got on my nerves. I just wish he would just have gone to another school. And I remember he got feeling, he was bouncing all the time. He was just one of those kind of kids, sit down, sit down, sit down. You just wish you had a recording just saying that over and over again. He was just that kind of kid. Really get on your nerves. And he came up to me one day and he wasn't moving at all. He wasn't bouncing like the Energizer Bunny or anything. And he says, I'm sick. And I said, you pulling my leg? And he says, no, I really feel bad. And I could see he was he was really feeling bad. So we began to walk back to the nurse's office, and as I was sitting there, I mean, as we were walking, I was thinking to myself, I don't have much compassion for him. I don't, the fact that he's sick really doesn't bother me that much. I kind of like the fact that he's not hyper anymore. But the thought came to me, put your arm around him. And so I just kind of put my arm around him. And when I touched him, it was like God did something in me. You see, we can say, I love you, and we can say these kind of things. But the compassion and the love of God compels us to meet the needs of those around us. And that's where you'll meet God. And that's where God will speak through your life. I should turn this back on, right? And just that story really touched me, because God ministered through Mike and through Mrs. Cooley, laying down her life there in those ways. So that you want to just try that. And it's even better if it's somebody that you really don't get along with, or you know what I'm saying. To show love, ask God to help you love that person. The Bible says, put on loving kindness. Actually, it's in that chapter, is one place. He says, I think it's in this chapter.
32, where it talks about being kind to one another.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. That's one we kind of mentioned last week too. But he says, put away lying, speak every man truth to his neighbor, for we're members of one another. Maybe it's in Colossians. He says, put on loving kindness. That's something that we have to put on. That's an act of our will, isn't it? If you're going to sit around and say, I'm going to love people when I get the feelings, when the feelings jump on me and I get little goosebumps, I'm going to start loving people. Well, guess what? It's probably not going to come. God always meets us when we take a step, right? If we will make a step and we'll step out of sacrifice of love for one another, of other people, God will meet you in a mighty way. And so, and then he says, let's see, verse 11. He gave some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers. So here's some other gifting